guys, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to another episode of Happy Chirp and also welcome to season 5. We took a short break जिसमें हम सब ने recover किया, rest किया, New Year's enjoy किया, and I'm very excited to get back into the podcast. So my first guest today is Zara Maqbool. Hello Zara.
Hi Hamna.
That you've all met before as well on the podcast. बहुत insightful. इनके साथ मैंने पिछली podcast की थी. She's a therapist. Personally, I got a lot of messages and response from you guys how helpful it was. So I'm excited to bring her back. But इस context में जिस context में उनको लेकर आई हूँ इस दफ़ा, which was an idea that she brought herself and I found it extremely interesting, is कि you know, like around the new year there's a lot of conversation around New Year resolutions and अगर मेरा season ना end हो रहा होता तो मैं ये conversation पहले करती season end करने से before we got into the New Year's, but I thought कि it's still relevant and it can still be helpful for a lot of people. इस साल New Year's के around a lot of people were talking about, you know, resolutions का point भी क्या होता है या कुछ लोग बनाते भी क्यों हैं, and I feel like there is a whole psychology and science there that we could talk to Zara about and really deconstruct के हम क्यों बनाते हैं, इस टाइम पे क्यों बनाते हैं, what is the sort of psychology behind it. So, but before that, Zara, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm really happy to be here again.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you again. How have you been?
I've been good, quite busy. Lot of work coming in, and like I was sharing with you, before we started, that there was a lot of response post that podcast, and I think it was very encouraging for me to see how people are keen to know about mental health and are more forthcoming around creating awareness for themselves, and of course it's going to impact the society in the long term.
Yeah, I think वो लोगों को कहीं से भी वो first step मिल जाता है ना, to how to get into this space of getting therapy. People are really keen on taking that up now. कि अच्छा कोई तो direction मिली, कोई तो therapist नजर आया, कोई तो conversation हुई. So yeah, so like I said, वो बड़ी insightful थी and it helped a lot of people, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so Zara, let's get into the conversation. So New Year's के around पहली बात तो ये है कि न्यू ईयर्स रेजोल्यूशंस बनानी चाहिए लोगों को.
So, when I was thinking, because like every year, I think I was one of those people who believed कि New Year के time पे, and they could be anything. It could be about going back to the gym, by maybe writing something, working on a relationship, and that made me curious because this year was perhaps the first year I chose not to have any resolution.
अच्छा.
So when you say कि बनानी चाहिए कि नहीं, let's first try to understand कि बनाई जाती क्यों है. At least मेरी ऐसी मतलब understanding as a therapist क्या है, because I gave it a lot of thought. I reflected on it, what made me make these resolutions all these years and how successful I was or I wasn't. So I think firstly, एक तो मुझे लगता है because we are creature of habit, हम सब norm को follow करना चाहते हैं, तो we were sort of born in the world and we have seen our parents making those resolutions, and it's an intergenerational thing as well. तो बहुत से ऐसे ideas हमने सोचे समझे बगैर internalize कर लिए. We have just swallowed them without chewing them, if I put it very simply, कि वो खाने की जैसे overeating होती है. And there are many social interjects, and I think resolution is one of them. जिनको traditions का कहा जाता है ना, जैसे Valentine's के tradition है, Mother's Day का है, so हम blindly इनको follow करते हैं. This was one of them. But if I look at it more deeply, I feel कि as human beings we want to change. So just linking back to the conversation कि why there was so much response to that podcast was, and I was so intrigued that there were little things said between that 1 hour podcast that somebody had connected to, and they said it made us think. So we do want to change. I think as people we have a fantasy and innate need to change since we are born in the world. So New Year resolution is, I think, rooted in that motivation and their desire to change. फिर इसमें दूसरी लेयर आ जाती है कि why particularly New Year?
Yeah, why at that time? Yeah, like you can decide to change at any point, right? Like,
और हम हर वक्त हम चाहते तो हैं ना, हम अपनी ईटिंग हैबिट्स को चेंज करना चाह रहे होते हैं. अगर स्पेशली आई थिंक जो हमें फीडबैक मिलता है, जिसके अंदर ऑफ कोर्स कई दफ़ा हमें क्रिटिसिज्म ज़्यादा मिल जाती है, लेकिन हमें इन्वायरमेंट, एक सेल्फ है और एक इन्वायरमेंट है, इन्वायरमेंट की फीडबैक से कभी हमें मोटिवेशन होती है अपने आप को चेंज करने की, और कई दफ़ा हमारे अपने इनबिल्ट है. थेरेपी इज अगेन अ प्लेस वेयर यू वांट टू चेंज ऑन योरसेल्फ, you want to bring a change. So I think when it comes to timing, and I was curious, what is it about the timing? It's almost like there's a reset button that we all want. And then why do we need a reset button? I think especially Pakistani society, but I think all over the world, parenting has a lot of criticism involved. And I
Right.
think parents do, unfortunately, even to the best of their intentions, do become critical parents,
Yeah.
and they want to be encouraging parents, but both coexist.
Right.
So I think this and as a child, if we are exposed to especially overcritical parents, we do internalize within ourselves, within the psyche, an inner critic. And I think you are familiar with it, and I'm familiar with it, where there's a parental voice that says you should be doing that,
Yeah.
and you should be losing weight, and you should be wearing more makeup, or you should be, I mean, there is that voice that
Yeah.
we're all
Very familiar with,
very
yeah.
familiar, right?
Yeah.
So I think तो जब आप आवाज़ सुनते हैं उसका मतलब है कि आप में कुछ गलत है जिसको चेंज करने की ज़रूरत है.
बिल्कुल.
और आई थिंक उसमें भी बहुत सारा एक शेमिंग एलिमेंट भी आ जाता है. There are layers of shame if there's that voice, and that
Yeah.
voice is external as well. You know, we still have parents who are going to judge us, and some of us who are judgmental, who are critical. So I feel that reset button is almost like a fantasy of having a clean slate,
Yeah.
where you can rewrite your own story once
Yeah.
again. मुझे ये फीलिंग होती है कि वो साल के शुरू में एक लगता है कि अच्छा अब ये नया साल में एक नए तरीके से, it's almost like having a slate in your hand and you're like, I'm going to wipe out all my failures and my lack of achievements, and I'm going to try once more. And why I feel it's counterproductive, because then
Acha.
there is so much pressure, because see, change is great, we all should change, लेकिन जो साइकोलॉजी है ना, साइकोलॉजी ये सिखाती है कि पहले आप अपने आप को एक्सेप्ट करें कहाँ आप हैं ज़िंदगी में और अपने अंदर, और फिर आप चेंज करें.
Right.
And so that's the paradox. You can't change unless you accept where you are.
Yeah, okay, that's very interesting.
Right? So if there is an inner critic that's saying, well, shame on you and you need to change, so the critic is actually telling you not to accept yourself, not to accept your battles, your struggles, your own unique story, your own unique parenting, social construct, schooling, all of that, and simply saying, well, it's all on you and you need to change.
Right.
So that's why resolutions are great. I think हम सब में motivation भी होती है. We need to plan, we need to try to work towards outcomes, but I feel कि वो particularly New Year के time पे there is such an amplified pressure. It's almost like you are on New Year's Eve imagining कि अब ये पूरा साल मैंने एक जिम्मेदारी से गुजारना है और मैंने अब दोबारा वो नहीं करना जो मैंने इससे पहले
Right,
किया
and
है.
that's sort of unrealistic, setting that
Yeah,
expectation
yeah.
from yourself. Yeah.
And in a way आप जो कर ये रहे हैं, why it's counterproductive कि आप अपने inner critic को you're feeding more into that critic, because now that critic is going to
yeah.
keep a very
Yeah, now pressure और भी बढ़
pressure
गया.
और भी बढ़ गया है. तो वो तो उसके तो और ज़्यादा he or she is going to keep a strong eye on you कि अब
Yeah.
पूरा, and I mean again, that's not accepting of us as people, that we are gonna struggle and we are gonna fall down and we are gonna get up, and that's the journey of life.
Right.
सो रेजोल्यूशन में जो एक ये एब्सोल्यूट वे ऑफ थिंकिंग आ जाती है, वो अगेन एक चैलेंज है कि अब मैं आई विल नेवर एवर डू दैट अगेन. नो यू विल, एंड दैट्स
because you're human, right?
Yes.
Yeah, like वो element of forgiveness जो है वो हम उसको बिल्कुल remove करते हैं और हम कहते हैं बस अब मैं ये हूँ. एंड
यार फॉरगिवनेस के अलावा हम लोग बहुत सारे, जैसे एक ओवर थिंकिंग की बात आ जाती है ना, तो एक वन हिंट कि देयर इज समथिंग रॉन्ग इन आवर थिंकिंग और वी नीड टू लुक एट आवर थिंकिंग अगेन इज व्हेन वी थिंक इन अ वेरी एब्सोल्यूट वे. लॉट ऑफ पीपल से आई एम ऑलवेज गोना डू दिस, आई विल ऑलवेज ट्रस्ट यू, आई विल नेवर एवर ब्रेक योर ट्रस्ट. नो, सो एब्सोल्यूट वर्ड्स हैं ये, एब्सोल्यूट थिंकिंग है जो बहुत सारी हमारी होती है. एंड दैट अगेन इज us trying to not accept ourselves, because ये possible नहीं that we can always trust the other person,
right.
or we'll never ever hurt even people that are close to us. तो I think timing में एक तो pressure बहुत ज़्यादा है और दूसरी बात है कि lack of acceptance है. So in a way आप क्यों चेंज करना चाह रहे हैं, क्योंकि आप समझ रहे हैं आपके साथ कुछ गलत है. उसको एक एक्सेप्टेंस के लेंस से देखना और बात है, मगर क्रिटिसिज्म के साथ देखना कि शेम ऑन यू फॉर नॉट डूइंग दैट एंड नाउ यू नीड टू चेंज इज डिफरेंट फ्रॉम सेइंग ओके आई हैव अर्ड और आई हैव मेड अ मिस्टेक और आई वांट टू वर्क ऑन माई सेल्फ, बट आई एम एक्सेप्टिंग ऑफ माई सेल्फ as a mere mortal with all my struggles and my life's journey.
Okay, so you're saying you can, and you're saying that it's more effective if you come through a more accepting yourself way of creating change rather than a more like shaming yourself
Yes.
and then trying to create it. And
Yeah.
I understand that, like it makes more sense कि if you are at point A and you're trying to get to point B, first you need to understand point A है क्या, because only then you can create the right
Absolutely.
steps for
point B.
For point B. Like मुझे किसी ने पूछा कि one of my followers asked me, वो Q&A वाला sticker नहीं लगाते, so one of my followers asked me, what would you say to someone who is stuck with their goals? और उसमें this thought came to me that I think one is probably stuck with their goals when they are not the person who can achieve those goals, right? So आप पहले ये तो identify करो कि who you are and how this person can achieve those goals. So sometimes you have goals for yourself which are
not even meant for you.
Yes, that are unattainable for the kind of person you are right now, right? And
That's
if you
a good
maybe
point,
want to achieve those goals, maybe first you need to change some very basic things about yourself, but first you need to understand like who you are. So this is a similar concept.
Yeah.
I think to create change, first you need that sense of self-awareness first.
Bilkul. And I think perhaps a New Year resolution can, rather than looking in the future, I think New Year can be a time where people can reflect on the year before and actually just resolve to continue to accept themselves as who they are.
Right.
So make New Year about acceptance. Make it about looking back in 2022 rather than just looking through the lens of, I thought I'm going to work on my weight, but I did not, and I could not get an A, or I did not work on the relationships, etc. Perhaps point. And I think like first thing should be, I accept myself that I did try, and I did try to get up as many times as I could. And falling down doesn't mean that I failed. It simply meant I had to get up again. And acceptance में बहुत दफ़ा लोग confuse हो जाते हैं, because of course I bring it up in my therapy as well, that are you saying we don't need to take ownership of our issues? No, of course you take ownership.
Like acceptance का ये मतलब नहीं है कि आप complacency is different, right?
और दूसरी बात है, देखो जैसे जिस question, I'm glad you brought this up, that one of the viewers who said कि मैं I'm feeling stuck. So stuckness में जो लोग, बहुत दफ़ा आपने सुना होगा कि लोग कहते हैं stop being lazy, तुम करना चाहो तो तुम कर सकती हो, तुम करना ही नहीं चाह रही. अच्छा, जिसके अंदर ठीक है, कई दफ़ा तो एक पैथोलॉजिकल रीजंस भी होती है, डिप्रेशन की वजह है कि लोगों की मोटिवेशन ख़त्म हो जाती है. बट मोर इम्पॉर्टेंटली प्लीज़ अंडरस्टैंड दैट इवन व्हेन वी आर स्टक, वी आर मूविंग. It might not look like movement to you, but just the fact that we are mindfully aware of being stuck means that we are actually moving away from the stuckness. And again, if you're stuck with something, a lot of times people say sleep over it, give it time. और उसमें बड़ी मसलहत है, उसमें बहुत एक विजडम है, बिकॉज मोस्ट ऑफ द थिंग्स विल ऑर्गेनिकली चेंज ऑन देयर ओन, बिकॉज चेंज सबसे ज़्यादा कांस्टेंट है. स्टकनेस इज नॉट गोना स्टे. बट होता ये कि बिकॉज व्हेन वी स्टक, उसमें अगेन हम इतना अपने आप को शेम करते हैं और जज करते हैं कि हम एनर्जी उस स्टकनेस को एक्चुअली दे रहे होते हैं, एंड वो उतनी ज़्यादा वो इट बिकम्स स्ट्रॉन्गर. सो इफ यू वांट टू मूव अवे फ्रॉम दैट, देन एक्सेप्ट योरसेल्फ एज वेल. दिस इज वेयर आई एम राइट नाउ, लेट्स सी वेयर आई गो फ्रॉम देयर.
या दैट मेक्स अ लॉट ऑफ सेंस एक्चुअली. उस दिन ना लाइक इन आवर टीम हम बैठ के न्यू ईयर्स रेजोल्यूशंस को डिस्कस कर रहे थे, एंड वन ऑफ देम सेड कि हाँ, बट यू नो माई प्रॉब्लम विद न्यू ईयर्स रेजोल्यूशन इज़ दैट at the end of the year, when I look back at them, I feel really bad because I wasn't able to do them. I was like, yeah, I get it, but the problem is that's because हम जब वो set करते हैं ना अपने लिए, तो then that's all we're focused on. मैंने कहा, why don't you just look at back your year and think about all that did happen. And जो आपके लिए change हो रहा होता है, if your lens is so fixated on what you want from your life, you will never see what life actually gave you. Because you're like, oh ये तो नहीं हुआ.
और actually वो lens आपका inner critical lens से आप देख रहे हैं ना, वो आपको वही दिखा रहा है जो उसका काम है, कि वो आपको सिर्फ ये सिखाए कि आपने. और दूसरी बात है कि देखो हम इसमें एक और जो रेजोल्यूशन को अगर हम बात करें कि हम न्यू ईयर पे क्यों पर्टिकुलरली करते हैं, अगेन इट्स अ टाइमिंग, दिस फैंटेसी ऑफ अ क्लीन स्लेट. But more importantly, I mean, human beings are more helpless than any other, like animals can still, fetch their food or whatever. हम as infants कितनी helplessness के साथ हम इस दुनिया में आते हैं, then we are helpless and dependent to the environment in so many ways. I think resolution is also about control. Because when we feel helpless, we want to have control. So in a way, we are saying we are going to define what the next year is going to look like. And we're going to do this and we're going to do that. So वो कहीं ना कहीं कंट्रोल की नीड भी आती है रेजोल्यूशन बनाने में. हमें ऑर्गेनिकली ये अगर हम सोचना पड़े कि हम अनसर्टन है हमारा फ्यूचर, दैट्स अ वेरी ओवरवेलमिंग फीलिंग.
True. So it gives that
sense of control.
And that sort of like a facade of control.
Facade of control is more like it. And of course, again, we need to plan and we need to, मगर वो जो एक विंडो होनी चाहिए जिसके अंदर अगर ना हो तो दैट्स ओके, वो विंडो हमें लगता है कि
बंद कर देते हैं हम.
बंद कर देते हैं,
बिल्कुल. हाँ,
क्योंकि हम अपने आप को मिस्टेक्स की इजाज़त नहीं देते.
And that's actually very dangerous because that affects your self-worth and how you sort of view yourself.
Of course.
And then you can really go down that spiral which is so you're so harsh. You can end up being extremely harsh.
It's the
to
language.
yourself.
Like almost 9 out of 10 times when a client comes in for the first session,
Acha.
the whatever the presenting issue might be, they'll say, "I want to fix myself," and my response always is, "Well, we only fix problems. Are you saying you're a problem?" And they're like, "Of course, because of this, and that's my first step is to challenge that, how they look at themselves when they're coming to therapy. That no, it's beautiful. You've had a journey, and a beautiful journey doesn't mean all roses and rainbows. There is pain, and pain has a lot of beauty and power as well. So first of all, you're not a problem. You're not here to fix yourself. You're just here to know yourself, and just to have a choice of being another way than how you are right now. So again, it's how we look at ourselves, and then we project the same thing towards anything and everything around us, including New Year resolutions.
I think what I'm getting from this as well is that if we're able to reflect, then we might actually be able to change. Because reflection के बगैर change हो नहीं सकता. वो you have to reflect on what happened or what's been happening, and sort of understand yourself now and a little bit the past year, and then maybe it can lead to some kind of.
So reflection is one part of it, right? Reflection means something has already happened, and now we reflect on it and we try to make sense of it. So, for example, a client comes in, or my work is to reflect on their past, and then to get information from that to understand where they are right now. So ये एक part है. Second, I think जो एक attitude है, be curious about yourself and have an open stance to yourself. Almost like if you want to reset your attitude towards yourself. वो क्लीन स्लेट आप जो और अपने आउटकम्स और अपने गोल्स की तरफ प्रोजेक्ट करते हैं, आप अपने आप को कंसिडर योर सेल्फ, बिकॉज वी ऑल राइट अ स्टोरी फॉर अस, राइट? आई मेंशन इट बिफोर एज वेल. सो रीराइट दिस स्टोरी बट विद एन ओपन माइंड,
राइट, नॉट विद अ क्लोज्ड माइंड. एक्चुअली इनफैक्ट हम
एंड नॉट बेस्ड ऑन योर पास्ट. हम उल्टा करते हैं. रिलेशनशिप्स में भी जैसे, मतलब हम गलतियों से इतना डरते हैं कि रप्चर्स आर एज इम्पॉर्टेंट एज रिपेयर्स. Unless we have those ruptures, the growth of relationship will not take place. And ruptures can be little thing, like we were meant to meet that day and then an emergency happened, I couldn't come. I thought I'm going to come at 12. But the session was at 1. So they are little conflicts, aren't they? But it's about how you and I had a conversation around it. You could have felt, what the hell, if it's 1, why is she asking if it's 12? Or for example, when you had to cancel because there was an urgency, I could have become like, मुझे क्या last. So वो एक openness की बात थी ना, and it's about understanding कि okay, these things can happen. I mean, I was outside your house and I just turned around and I didn't even flinch for a second. I said, that's fine. But to get here was a lot of work, to be honest.
But I think दूसरों को वो ऑफर करना ज़्यादा आसान लगता है. So basically when I cancelled our podcast the other day, तो I kept telling you I feel really bad because you had already left. बिल्कुल. तो वो because I think वो आपके अंदर इस तरह वही बात है कि
societal cultural है कि हम तो we are such मतलब हम गिल्ट और शेम के लिए सारा वक्त इंतजार में बैठे हुए हैं क्योंकि हमें ब्रिंगिंग इज.
इफ यू हैड डन द सेम विद मी ना, तो जबकि मुझे पता है कि मैं अंडरस्टैंड करती हूँ, मैं कहती नहीं इट्स फाइन, लेकिन मुझे था कि नहीं अगले बंदे के साथ मैंने गलत बहुत ज्यादा कर दिया और अपने आप को शेम करना.
और अगर आप इस एग्जांपल को एंड आई एम ग्लैड आई ब्रॉट दिस अप बिकॉज देखो इसके अंदर जो हमारी है ना, ये बहुत से लोग कहते हैं आई एम रियली सॉरी आई डिड दैट, आई एम सॉरी मेरी वजह से. इसमें कहीं ना कहीं हम सबकी एक नार्सिस्टिक नीड है. नार्सिज्म का स्केल सबके अंदर है कि मेरा इतना इम्पैक्ट अगले पे है कि अगला इतना इम्पैक्ट हो गया कि उस वक्त उसका 1 बजे का टाइम ज़ाया हो गया. Whereas another thing that maybe you can think about as well, that we are so irrelevant in everybody's story. You were only relevant for those 5 minutes when I was about to come in for an hour, or you were relevant for that hour, right? Beyond that, it's perfectly okay.
True. क्या कुछ भी नहीं हो जाता.
लेकिन वो हमारी कहीं ना कहीं बिकॉज वी वांट टू, हमारी सेल्फ स्टीम का भी एक स्केल होता है, एक लो सेल्फ स्टीम हाई सेल्फ स्टीम के डेज होते हैं. सो आई थिंक वो कहीं ना कहीं हमारी नार्सिस्टिक नीड है कि हमारा इतना इम्पैक्ट है लोगों पे कि नाउ वी नीड टू अपोलोजाइज. ऑफ कोर्स दैट्स नाइस टू इफ देयर समथिंग हैज हैपेंड, दैट्स फाइन, बट वी ओवर अपोलोजाइज एंड वी ओवर एक्सप्लेन एंड वी फील गिल्टी एंड दैट गिल्ट दैट इवन फॉर अ मोमेंट दैट यू फेल्ट डिड नॉट बिलोंग टू यू. Things happen and that's okay.
That's very interesting. Yeah. So then, okay, how do you recommend while everything you said that makes a lot of sense, but एक मोटिवेशन तो लोगों के अंदर आती है बिकॉज ऑफ द न्यू ईयर, राइट? सो हाउ शुड वन देन सॉर्ट ऑफ handle it or deal with it? How should people go towards change or make those resolutions?
Sure.
What would you say?
I think that's a very good point ki motivation aati there is something about new year. We all feel excited with the new year coming in. If you've noticed, right, you want to, there's a celebration that almost all of us in whatever capacity we can, we like to do that. So yes, like I said, we are, as human beings, we want to change. It's an innate thing in ourselves. We want to be motivated, we want to have goals. So आपने अगर goals define करने भी हैं, आप ज़रूर करें, लेकिन goal define करने से पहले step 1 है कि accept the year that you have spent and actually honor the year. And honor is the word I want to use. Honor the year that you have had. Don't just look at it through the lens of your failures, but look at just making an effort or getting out of the bed and doing whatever that you did. First of all, accept that, and then secondly, sure, have resolutions, but don't make them कि अब ये पूरा साल. It's all about how you're thinking and the language you're using as well.
Okay.
You can say, okay, sure, these are the 2-3 things I would like to work on to the best of my ability. Because see, the best of our ability is going to change day to day. Today, when I walked in, I was telling you I feel a bit overwhelmed because there's so many on my plate. So maybe I'm not, haven't really tapped into my potential as I would have yesterday.
Right.
So sure, have a goal. Sure. Make a plan, but then have that conversation with yourself कि I will do the best that I can, and my best cannot be the best every day for the entire year.
Yeah,
it's going to keep
that
changing.
makes a lot of sense. So yeah, I think we generally as well really need to work on the language that we use with
बहुत उसका
ourselves.
impact है.
Yeah.
मैं आज सुबह भी एक सेशन में किसी को ये कही थी, this couple would come in and I was saying कि look, words ये तो कहते हैं ना यार, दिल का तो बहुत अच्छा है. भाई दिल किसने देखा है आपका, मतलब unless कि सिर्फ उसकी ज़ुबान कड़वी है लेकिन दिल बहुत अच्छा है. लैंग्वेज आपका बिकॉज ही आपका पूरा एक नर्वस सिस्टम, आपका ब्रेन, माइंड, बॉडी, एवरीथिंग इज कनेक्टेड. सो कई दफ़ा अगर फॉर एग्जाम्पल एंड दैट्स व्हाट आई सेड टू द क्लाइंट कि इवन इफ यू हैविंग दिस रिजेंटमेंट, I can't say anything to change that feeling, and so you just stay with that feeling. But you challenge yourself and you use words that are contrary to that feeling, and that in turn can soften up and create more space in your heart for whatever that you're going through. So the language that we speak to others and our internal dialogue that's taking place all the time, उसमें भी अपने आप को चेक करने की ज़रूरत है. So should, for example, अगर आप अपने आप से बात कर रहे हैं, अपने मतलब दिमाग में आपकी बात चल रही है and you're using a lot of shit, that is a clear sign that that's the inner critic talking. This is actually an exercise, because I've done a CBT training as well. Isme shush the inner critic is an exercise that you do.
Acha. Interesting.
So that's the parental voice, and parental voice is the voice that we have. मतलब बड़े होके हमने अपने पेरेंट्स कहते हैं you should be doing this, you should work hard, you should do that, which is again fine but excessive now. So I think आप goals रखें लेकिन एक soft space के साथ, and also from a space of knowing that you are helpless to so many environmental factors. अब कोविड से पहले आपने अगर रेजोल्यूशन की है कि मैं रोज़ जिम जाऊंगी या मैं लोगों को ज़्यादा मिलूंगी, और आप 2 साल के लिए आप you were shut down. So resolution can't be independent of so many factors that we do not have control on. And that's where we have to allow ourselves and we have to forgive ourselves, and we need to be,
चीज़ें तो हो जाती हैं, things are out of our control. I think acceptance में एक और चीज़ भी आती है कि the acceptance of things that are out of our control.
I think 90% है out of control. मेरा अपना जो personal journey, I think one of the things that really sort of change my view of the world and myself is that I am so helpless and I'm so irrelevant. Being irrelevant and internalizing that feeling is perhaps one of the best things that I could have taught myself.
I think that's humility in a way, right? Like,
of course. And humility भी again, because हम जब हमारे कंट्रोल में नहीं तो हम हमारा उतना इम्पैक्ट है नहीं जितना हम अपने आप को, of course है एक right now sharing something that perhaps will have an impact on others, and you're doing such an amazing thing as well, but beyond that again it's just moment to moment that keeps changing,
right?
So I think any resolution, at least if I would suggest to others, and a resolution I make for myself for the last 2 years now is I want to be kind to myself and I want to accept myself, and if I'm whatever I am and however I am with myself, I will automatically make my life choices and be with others in the same spirit and space. So सारा काम है ही अपने साथ.
And I think that's what therapy is as well, right? सारा अपने साथ काम.
क्योंकि देखिए जो लाइफ चॉइसेस है ना, so for example अगर आपने कोई भी आपके गोल्स हैं, फंक्शनल गोल्स हैं, आपने अपनी जॉब चेंज करनी है, आपने अपना घर, वो सब लाइफ चॉइसेस, फनी इनफ पीपल विल नॉट बिलीव इट बिकॉज यू हैव टू एक्सपीरियंस दैट, दे आर ऑल रूटेड इन दिस जनरल एटीट्यूड दैट आई हैव टुवर्ड्स माई सेल्फ. अगर मैं अपनी तरफ एक्सेप्टेंस मेरी है, मैं वही मैनिफेस्ट करूँगी यूनिवर्स में, और मेरी लाइफ चॉइसेस, रिलेशनशिप की चॉइसेस, मैं किसके साथ रहना चाहती हूँ, किसके साथ नहीं, करियर, एवरीथिंग इज रूटेड इन माई एटीट्यूड टुवर्ड्स माई सेल्फ. एवरीथिंग एल्स विल बी टेकन केयर ऑफ. So just work on being kind and compassionate to yourself, and you'll see how it gets manifested in so many of your goals, that perhaps goals that you weren't even thinking of having, you'll
end up having. हाँ, वो ये भी कहते हैं कि similar concept है कि आपकी जब सेल्फ वर्थ अच्छी होती है तो देन यू मैनिफेस्ट द थिंग्स दैट यू बिलीव यू डिजर्व. क्योंकि अगर अंडरलाइंग आपका बिलीफ ही नहीं है अपने अंदर दैट आई डोंट डिजर्व लाइक these things, you don't end up getting
something
there.
simple. If somebody, for example, has been in the same job for 10 years now, and every year makes a resolution कि यार मुझे अब अपनी कंपनी चेंज करने की ज़रूरत है, मुझे हिम्मत करने की ज़रूरत है, लेकिन और एंड शेम ऑन मी कि मैं 10 साल से बैठा हूँ और मैं 8 साल से बैठा हूँ, और आप अपने आप को लगातार जज करें, आप अपने आप को समझते नहीं कि आप डिज़र्व करते हैं कि यू लुक, whereas if you say look, I mean hats off to me for making it in a company for 10 years against all odds. Automatically when you consider yourself worthy, you will only reach out to companies that will recognize that self-worth.
Yeah, I think your decisions, like you said, all the things that decisions you make, they are based on your belief inside,
yes,
right?
Even the small ones, even the little day-to-day decisions are rooted in that.
Yeah, that's why like वो होता है ना कि कुछ लोग का वो जब उनकी सेल्फ एस्टीम बेहतर होती है, सेल्फ वर्थ बेहतर होती है, तो द गुड थिंग्स स्टार्ट हैपनिंग, लाइक यू स्टार्ट मैनिफेस्टिंग दोज थिंग्स, एंड सम पीपल सॉर्ट ऑफ रिमेन इन दैट साइकिल और स्पाइरल ऑफ अ लॉट ऑफ.
और आप हमने नोटिस करो, देखो आई मीन आई एम अ पेरेंट, दिस समथिंग आई एम लर्निंग कि कहने से अपने आप को दूसरों को कोई फ़र्क नहीं पड़ता. फॉर एग्जाम्पल हम बच्चों को कह रहे होते हैं अपने खाने का एहतियात करो, लोगों को कह रहे होते हैं, आपका सारा काम जैसे मैंने कहा अपने साथ है, आपका अपना एटीट्यूड होगा, ऑटोमेटिकली यूनिवर्स विल क्रिएट स्पेस फॉर यू टू गो टूवर्ड्स दोस एंड यू विल अराइव वेयर यू वांट टू अराइव.
आई थिंक मैंने तो पर्सनली खुद ही एक्सपीरियंस किया, बिकॉज प्री 2020 मेरी जो अपनी सेंस ऑफ सेल्फ वर्थ थी, इट वॉज वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग, एंड ऑटोमेटिकली आई मैनिफेस्टेड अ लॉट ऑफ ग्रेट थिंग्स फॉर माई सेल्फ. लाइक यू नो, मतलब मैंने बहुत सारी चीज़ें अचीव की जो मैं सोच भी नहीं सकती थी. मैं कहती थी, oh my God, अल्लाह ताला ने मुझे लाइक ये सब चीज़ें दे दी हैं. पोस्ट 2020 mid 2020 and post that, like my self-worth was really impacted by a lot of things that happened one after the other, many incidents. So वो ज़ाहिर है बहुत ज़्यादा मुझे ट्रॉमा था उन सारी चीज़ों का, और मेरी अपनी जो सेल्फ एस्टीम थी बिल्कुल ख़त्म हो गई थी. And since then, you know, I really struggled with, you know, why aren't things happening for me? Like, why am I not able to do the same? Why am I not able to achieve things the way that I used to? Blah, 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 all of that. And very recently I had this realization is that the one thing that I need to work on is acceptance and self-worth.
And honoring yourself. I think we need to honor ourselves.
I started doing that, and it has changed everything.
Mashallah.
It's not like I started achieving, but I just started loving my life that I didn't like before.
And you notice the kind of people who you know walk towards you, the kind of opportunities वो automatically
खुद ही आना शुरू हो जाती है, जो पहले एकदम से बंद हो गई थी और पहले भी आती थी. So I think you sort of attract.
Of course. मैं इसीलिए ये ऑनर का वर्ड यूज़ करती हूँ, क्योंकि ऑनर हम समझते हैं कि बहुत ही कोई पता नहीं कौन सी जगह पे पहुंचेंगे तो फिर हम डिजर्व करते हैं एक ऑनर मिलना, लाइक अवार्ड्स भी जो दिए जाते हैं. बट आई रियली बिलीव दैट वी नीड टू ऑनर आवरसेल्व्स ऑन अ डेली बेसिस. आई वांट टू ऑनर माई सेल्फ दैट लाइक व्हेन आई वाज कमिंग इन, एक तरफ मेरे फ़ोन पे आई वाज ट्राइंग टू सेटल माई यू नो माई लिटिल वन हैड टू कम इन अर्ली, बेटी का था, आई हैव ट्रेनिंग आफ्टर दिस, आई हैवंट ईटन, लाइक I was literally multitasking within this 10-15 minutes, writing a check in between, and I'm proud of myself for sitting here and disconnecting from everything and really enjoying this. So we need to honor ourselves.
It's such a nice word. I'm going to use that now. Yeah. I will honor myself more.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I never used that word for myself. You know, it's always an honor, you know, in other areas. It's never an honor for yourself.
And we've, like I said, we are conditioned to believe कि हम कोई मतलब K2 पे पहुंचेंगे तो फिर ही हम we really again it's rooted in the resolution कि it's some place that's going to take so much work to get there and then we deserve to be honored.
Yeah.
No, it's a moment where perhaps I've been trying to cut down on my sugar and there's a dessert and I choose not to. I'm going to honor that moment. Hats off to you for not having that gulab jamun that you're dying to have.
Yeah, that's amazing, and that's such a positive reinforcement for yourself, I guess.
Course, yeah.
Okay, so that's 30 minutes and we didn't have a lot of time today, but if there's still any thought that you wanted to share, like when you came in, koi baat hai to
not really.
Or do you think that this
I think
sort of I think this wraps it up in a really nice way, nice way.
Yeah, I think we perhaps the only thing again I would like to say कि maybe the resolution, New Year resolution, next year resolution, and those who have not had any as yet, or those who have had certain resolutions, they might want to look into them again and, like I said, honor yourself, accept yourself, and have your goals, but allow yourself to fall down, and falling down is as amazing as getting up. We don't learn how to swim unless we're down a few times.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It was lovely, like last time, and I look forward to seeing you again.
Yes, always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I hope that this was helpful in any way, impacted you in a positive way, and you learned a thing or two. मेरे लिए तो बहुत insightful थी, just learning, the word honor and honoring myself. Like I said, I'm going to use that. So hopefully it helped some of you as well. Please leave your comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you again next time. Allah Hafiz.